My name is Grace Poe, and this is my audience for my famous person speech. Thank you for all coming out to hear my speech about Walt Disney. I really appreciate it. Walter Elias Disney, Walt for short, was born on December 5th, 1901. Walt Disney is best known for being an American entrepreneur, an animator, voice actor, film producer, and he was one of the founders of the American animation industry. Today, I wanted to share a discussion of his life in a little bit more detail. Walt Disney was born in Chicago, and he had 4 other siblings. In 1917, when Walt was in high school, he was the school's newspaper cartoonist. In 1918, he lied about his age to be able to join the Red Cross. In 1919, he moved to Kansas City to apprentice at Pensman Ruber Commercial Art, where he met UB Iwerks. This was the beginning of the successful career in his animation business. Now that I've given you a little background of Walt's origins, now I'm going to tell you about his journey to success. In 1920, Walt Disney left Pensman Ruber Commercial Art and started working at local Newman Theater in Kansas City, making short cartoons sold as laughograms. For the next 3 years, Walt worked there while he was making cartoons called Alice's Wonderland, based on the book Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Unfortunately, the studio went to bankrupt in 1923. In Neil Gabler's 2006 book, Walt Disney: The Triumph of the American Imagination, which is this book, right here, it states that the summer that Walt moved to Hollywood in 1923 to sell Alice cartoons, he had one buyer, Margaret J. Winkler. After she bought all 6 Alice cartoons, Walt and his brother Roy formed the Disney's Brothers Studio, which later would become the Walt Disney Company. Things were going good at the time at the Disney Brothers Studio. Walt hired an Incas artist named Lillian Bounds, who he eventually would marry. At the studio, Walt made Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in 1928. In a dispute with the distributor, Margaret J. Winkler, Walt lost the rights to Oswald and most of his animation staff, except UB Iwerks. Based on this bad experience, Walt was determined to never have anyone have control over his work except for him. Walt did not give up, and he moved on to his next soon-to-be successful project, Mickey Mouse. Catherine Barrett and Richard Green wrote in the 2001 edition, Inside the Dream, the personal story of Walt Disney. Walt came up with the idea of Mickey Mouse on a train ride home to Kansas City. Walt was Mickey's original voice for the beginning of his career, and then his first appearance was May 1928 in Steamboat Willie. Which is right here. This is him in Steamboat Willie, and then here are a few of the first cartoons that Mickey was in. And then I have a sketch of Mickey Mouse that I got in Walt Disney World. Mickey saved the studio. Mickey was Walt's big break into another successful projects like Flowers and Trees, which was the first in Technicolor cartoon. His growing experience with animation eventually led to feature-length films such as Snow White and Cinderella, which everybody knows, which I have. From the mid-1950s, Walt's interest shifted from animation to something new. For many years, Walt wanted to build a theme park. In an article found in Wikipedia, last updated on June 1st, 2016, Walt wanted to have a clean, unspoiled park where children and adults could go together and have a good time. In 1952 was the beginning of the construction of Walt's theme park, Disneyland. Disneyland is in Burbank near the Disney Studios. The park opened on July 17, 1955. Making Disneyland a reality for Walt was a real challenge. Walt was determined to have the park open as soon as possible. He had working crews working 24 hours, 7 days a week. Walt was also very involved in the building of Disneyland. He would be out there, helping paint a sign, helping put up light fixtures, saying, this needs to go there, that needs to go there. He was very hands-on in the entire Disneyland project. He knew exactly what he wanted everything to look like. If it wasn't perfect, then, he would have somebody redo it, or he would redo it himself. In February of 2000, Mark Langer wrote on American's National Biography Online, Walt and his crew worked up until 1 hour before Disneyland opened. The paint was still drying and the concrete was still hardening. I mean, women's heels were falling into the concrete. It was not dry at all. But Disneyland was a success, and it was what everyone had hoped for and more. Now that you've learned about Disney on the West Coast, let's talk about Disney on the East Coast. In 1965, Walt bought land in Orlando, Florida, and announced that he would be building a new theme park called Disney World. This new park would be much bigger than Disneyland and it would include a Magic Kingdom, which would be a more elaborate version of Disneyland. And it also would have, golf courses and resort hotels as well. But Walt would add something new to Disney World that Disneyland didn't have, Epcot, short for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, which the website D23 describes as it will take its direction from new ideas and new technologies that are just being discovered from the creative center of the American industry. Epcot will never be finished and always will be introducing new materials and systems. Around 1966, Walt got more involved in the studio's films again, on top of making Disney World. This would be the last of his great man's work. He had been a heavy smoker since World War I. In November of 1966, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. On November 30th, he was checked into a hospital. And that is where he stayed until he passed away on December 15th. After Walt's death, his brother Roy took over the Disney company. Roy renamed Disney World to Walt Disney World in honor of his brother, Walt. Editors at WaltDisneyBio.com, Roy's goal was to maintain the legacy of Walt Disney as the founder and genius that made all of the Walt Disney enterprises possible. In conclusion, it would not be too much to say Walt Disney changed the world we knew him as so many things. American entrepreneur, animator, voice actor, film producer, and he was one of the founders of the American animation industry. Walt was determined and passionate about what he did, even through the hardest times. When he lost the rights to Oswald, he kept going. He never gave up. One door closed and a new door opened, which was Mickey Mouse, the start of it all. From there, he made more cartoons, which led into feature-length films, which eventually led into theme parks that are still loved today. I hope this brief introduction to Walt Disney's life and work has brought you as much pleasure as Walt Disney has brought me. And my last thing is, I have an original ticket from the beginning of when Disneyland opened. Thank you all for coming to listening to my famous person speech.